Hello and welcome to this Techerati interview series ahead of DevOps Live on the 8th and 9th of March at Excel London. I'm Stuart Crowley, Closer Still Media's Global Content Manager and Editor of Techerati. And today my guest is Georgina Shute. She is the Delivery Lead at 𝐅𝐸𝐴𝐥𝐸𝐴 and an advocate for neurodiversity. Georgina will join a panel on DevOps Live to discuss the importance of intersectionality. So welcome, Georgina.
Hello, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So on the topic of intersectionality and your story itself being an advocate of neurodiversity, has it been a challenge being neurodivergent in the workplace? And how have these challenges that you might have experienced shaped your career path?
So I think yes and no. Being neurodivergent in some ways I think has really helped me. It's helped me jump into roles where I wasn't ready. It's helped me to start a charity, learn a completely different language, and I've also been lucky enough to lead some UK-wide programs in DevOps transformations. Sometimes the challenges can be really hard to explain. So for example, being really overwhelmed if I'm taking on too much and not reaching out for help for fear of looking stupid, and sometimes not able to do really simple tasks like filling out a timesheet. I was reading an article the other day in a community called Unmasked, and it's looked after by a lady called Ellie Middleton. And she said, you've got to see it to be it. So as scared as I am of my own shadow sometimes, if we don't talk about neurodiversity and intersectionality and the positives it can bring and shed a light onto some of the challenges, then we want to be able to change the narrative. And if you can't see it, then you can't be it. So I want to be in a position where if my story can help one person, then I feel like it's worth it.
Based on the conversations that you might have had with people in business, perhaps leaders, what do you feel based on those conversations is the biggest challenge that they might face when trying to implement intersectional goals?
I think that the idea that these changes have to be really huge, that they become these big unattainable things. And I think if we lend that to the way we manage DevOps transformations or agile projects or whatever word we want to use, for me, it's about putting our software development hats on and finding creative solutions to these challenges. And that's what we're here for as DevOps professionals. And I think we can apply this to intersectionality, to neurodiversity, to look at the smallest things we can do to make the biggest impact. And the biggest impact to people sometimes can be really small things. So from a neurodiversity point of view, for example, giving clear instructions can also be really helpful for neurotypical people to do the thing that you say you're going to do, or ask someone how they are. A lot of changes for me are stemmed in kindness. It doesn't have to be these big, all-encompassing, all singing or dancing changes that we need to make. I think it's about using the small changes of kindness and asking people questions like, why do you think that? Because the way that you think is based on your social makeup, like where you're from, who you hang out with, where you've been to school. All of these things make us different, and that's really exciting because it means that we've got different opinions. And also if you're not sure, educate yourself. So as a scene, nobody knows everything. Nobody, and that's a really exciting challenge to be part of, because you can always be that person in the room that asks the question that makes somebody else feel calmer in a situation.
Sometimes people can see these things as a weakness when you get diagnosed with them, but out of those weaknesses can become your biggest strengths. I think that once you're aware of these things, you can compensate for them. So where do you feel your biggest strengths are?
Great question. I think I was reading the website for the DevOps Live conference, and it says if DevOps can drive value by improving team efficiency, you speed up product delivery, etc., etc. I think in order to improve team efficiency, speed up productivity, we need to understand how different people operate. Because if everybody is the same, one, it's really boring. No offense to everybody that's the same, but to know that differences actually spark really interesting conversations. I would say my biggest strength is about bringing things to life and bringing people on a journey, and also making people feel safe in an environment, because it can be really difficult to be different in an environment, and especially in a world where, you know, everything moves really quickly and we're expected to always deliver on time and to budget, etc., etc. It doesn't have to be that way. The happier people are in an environment, the more productive they are. Therefore, psychological safety and supportive environments, for me, are the most important thing in a team. And to understand that difference is a really beautiful thing and can be embraced. And going back to the previous point of the small things can make the biggest difference. Compound interest is a very exciting thing. If you save a penny, you save 2p the next day, etc. That, for me, that can be it can be a similar sort of thing. Kindness is compounding, and supporting people in an environment can make work a much more interesting and vibrant place to be. If it's an interesting and vibrant place to be, we can improve this team efficiency that we all talk about doing, and therefore speed up product delivery and deliver better things to our customers faster.
On that point, what do you think are maybe the benefits or the opportunities that intersectionality can present to DevOps professionals or even C-suite members?
I think it widens your talent pool. So in an environment where technology is an ever-growing thing, more and more things rely on technology. The more you understand difference, the more you can widen your pool. If you take your interview process, for example, and take things like the first time you walk into a room and you shake that person's hand and they give you eye contact, and that's really important. It's not, because there are some people that won't give eye contact, and that's because of things that they face in their own life. It doesn't mean that they're worse or better as a person because they can't shake your hand, but what they could do could bring something even more valuable to a room than their ability to shake your hand, which, if we think about what we've learned from COVID, things can be different, things can change, and change is our only constant. So work with it rather than against it. And I think we can make some really awesome things together by embracing that difference. And that's what I think the benefit, that's where I think the benefit for me is.
How do you feel like people in the majority or in neurotypical groups, how do you think that they could become better allies or better advocates for intersectionality, for diversity?
I think being that person that can give the platform to somebody else is really important. So a few years ago, I was in a meeting preparing for a consultancy pitch, and the senior leaders had never had somebody in my role in that room. So the fact that I made it into the room was, one, really scary, but two, really exciting. So I felt like I really needed to prove myself. And I was told in the room that I wasn't going to be part of the bid because of my seniority in the company, or lack of. And there was one guy in the room that spoke up for me, and he said that because I'd be leading the work, it would set us apart for me being in that bid. And we won it. And I'm not saying it was because of me, like I'm not the most important person in the world, absolutely not. But the fact that somebody was a voice for me and gave me a platform and listened to and read the room as well. And it was a really bolshy thing for him to do, and it was a really brave thing for him to do, to support me in that room. So I think, how can people, majorities and neurotypical people, is to be a voice, to listen to people when they're saying things are really difficult and saying, this, I work better in this way, or this is challenging for me, and do your research. There's so much, there is a plethora of information out there nowadays, and there are some real people that, you know, struggle with real things, with real life things, and also have wonderful talents in different arenas. So if you listen to them, you can then use that as a platform to make better things.
Looking ahead to the future, what do you think are your hopes for diversity in the tech world, in DevOps, and in your work yourself? What are your hopes for the future?
My hopes are that people see that it's okay to be different, and differences aren't always a threat. They're actually really positive. And that if you're in a position to advocate for somebody else, do, because if somebody can see you in that position, then they know that it's okay to do it too, and that we're creating environments that matter, because people really matter.
Do you think that it's hard sometimes to almost, to use a phrase, almost to come out as neurodiverse? Has that been a struggle in the past? And do you hope, or do you think that it's changing?
I think it has been a struggle in the past, and I think the more I understand about myself and the kinder I can be to myself, the more I'm comfortable being able to express I'm different and that's okay, and it's not my fault if you don't agree with me. And the self-kindness in that, I think, has been really powerful, to be able to advocate for my own voice and therefore to be able to advocate for other people. And I do think it's changing. But the more conversations like this, as you say, can happen, you get that compounding effect of, oh, you know, they've had that conversation, or maybe I can have it too. Oh, cool, maybe I can have it. And then by that one conversation, you've potentially got 3 or 4 other conversations that have happened, and it can be exponential.
Why do you feel it's important for events like DevOps Live and for people to come along to the show and also to your session?
I think the value for me of in-person events is being able to get away from a screen, meet new people, and also to hear and see new ideas. If you can come to, and you can come and listen to the talk or see the talk about intersectionality, you may learn something different. You may walk away from it thinking, oh, okay, it's fine for me to have these conversations. I can have this with one other person. And we go back to that snowball effect. I do think on the other side of that, in-person events can be overwhelming. So I will definitely be bringing my fidget toy and also looking at the floor plan beforehand, so I know where I'm going to be speaking. I'll also be finding a quiet space afterwards to recombobulate. And those things for me are really important. I will be preparing myself to go to this talk, because for me it can be quite overstimulating, but also knowing that it's for me the right thing to do this talk, to give this voice to somebody else.
Everyone can hear more from Georgina at DevOps Live this March, so you can get your free ticket to see Georgina and discuss the very important topic of intersectionality.